Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Beyond the Cage podcast presented by Intimidation Clothing. I am your host, Jim Gramm, and we are doing our 2013 end-of-year special where we will go over 8 different award categories, and we will nominate a particular fighter or event for the end-of-year awards. Once again, I am Jim Gramm, host of Beyond the Cage. My co-host, Dave "The Juice" Sadler. How's it going, Dave?
Hello, everybody.
And from our good friends at MMAinsider.net, we have Chuck Grace. How's it going, Chuck?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We also have our good friends from Vigilante MMA. He is Steve Sadler. Steve?
Hey, guys.
We also have from MMA Team Genesis, Doug Keast. Hey, Doug.
Hello. How are you?
And last but not least, we have the MMA blogger extraordinaire, Mr. Ted Czech. Hey, Ted.
Hey, what's up?
And as I said, we should maybe even have a special surprised jump-in guest, possibly. But as people know, if you tuned into the Beyond the Cage Facebook page, this will kind of serve as our big last show of the year. We already gave our picks for UFC 168. We already interviewed Josh Barnett, so a lot of cool things happen with the show, and glad to have all you gentlemen here to go over some award categories here for the year in MMA that was 2013. And looking over the awards, we got 8 categories. As I said, the first one that Dave and I came up with was Most Improved Fighter. We like that over Comeback Fighter of the Year. And for Most Improved Fighter, this is kind of goes to a guy or gal that has kind of been around in MMA for a while, but has never really kind of got to that elite status, but now has shown that they've kind of got on the winning streak, and all of a sudden they're at the verge of becoming a world champion. And I'll go with my pick first here on this category, and I think a guy that has really had a great 2013, and that is one Mr. Robbie Lawler. And so far in 2013, he is 3-0 since moving over from Strikeforce to the UFC. He also dropped down from middleweight to welterweight. In those 3 wins, he has 2 knockout victories. His most recent was a victory over Rory McDonald, arguably his best victory. And with that victory and GSP vacating the welterweight title, he is now all of a sudden 1 fight away from becoming the UFC welterweight champion. And there are a lot of people you could give this to, but for my money, I would go with ruthless Robbie Lawler. And next up, let's have Dave give his thoughts on Most Improved Fighter.
Jim, I think that your pick is a good pick. I think there's many people who we could put into this for Most Improved. I would have said Robbie Lawler, but I knew you were going to say that. The first name that immediately came to my mind was Tyron Woodley, but then I realized that he had lost earlier in the year, so I'm not going to go with him. He's on the upswing, so I like Tyron Woodley, but my pick is Travis Brown. Travis Brown had a great 2013, and he may cap it off with another huge victory coming up on Saturday, but Travis Brown is my pick.
All right, let's go with Chuck from MMAinsider.net. Your pick for Most Improved Fighter.
I agree with you, Jim. I have Robbie Lawler as my pick for the Most Improved Fighter of the Year for pretty much all the reasons you lay out. I'm pretty much in complete agreement with that.
All right, what do you think about Most Improved Fighter, Steve?
I had, like we're talking about, there were several here to choose from, and good options too. I think my own definition in my own head, I think Jacare Souza fits that definition the most. And he was mostly known as a solid fighter, real good fighter, but mostly a BJJ guy, racking up submissions. But it seems like real recently here, since coming over from Strikeforce, his striking has really improved quite a bit, and just that striking alone makes him pretty dangerous in that division. Another guy in his division is Vitor Belfort, and there was a lot of talk about him finishing 3 really quick fights this year. Well, Jacare also finished 3 really quick fights this year. He was 3-0. He spent a total of less than 10 minutes in the cage. So that's my guy.
What are you thinking for Most Improved Fighter, Ted?
Yeah, I liked Jacare as well. I really started noticing him. His last fight in Strikeforce, I think it was against Ed Herman, if I'm not mistaken, really showed his complete game. It really, there was just about everything that you saw from him in that fight, whether it's striking, wrestling. I believe he finished the fight with a submission, and then and now he's in the UFC, and he's one of these guys. I think I just read a headline where he said, "Hey, I'm the guy who has the blueprint to beat Chris Weidman." He's one of these guys that you can believe what comes out of his mouth. I mean, he's got the skills. We'll have to see how it all shakes out coming up at 168. But I agree with Steve. I mean, like he was saying. I mean, we've just seen just another level of this guy. He's tremendous on the ground, and now. Formidable standing up. So, yeah, I like Jacare a lot for a breakthrough fighter.
And last but not least, Doug Keast, your pick for most improved fighter in 2013.
Well, I'm hearing all these fighters that you're throwing out, and Lawler, I think Lawler has definitely seen a resurgence, but I don't know that he's necessarily better. I think he's the same fighter, just finding his zone. Jacare is definitely, you can definitely see the difference between the jiu-jitsu guy that he was and the mixed martial artist that he's becoming. But as far as breakthrough, everybody knew that Robbie Lawler was a killer at one point. Jacare was, everybody thought that he was going to be good because of his jiu-jitsu pedigree. Travis Brown? I mean, think about it. This is Travis Brown 2 years ago. I mean, he's really pushing. I think of the choices that we've got out here, that's probably the best as far as breakthrough fighter. I mean, he was a mid to low level heavyweight, and now he's not. Now he's pushing that top level. And I think that's what I'm going to have to see.
Yeah, definitely. Travis Brown is a guy that I think has surprised a lot of people because I think when he burst onto the scene, a lot of people thought that maybe he was just a striker, and I think he showed in several different ways that he can finish people in a variety of areas. And I think in that Alistair Overeem fight, I think a lot of people thought, maybe he's not ready for this stage, and he was able to come back and knock out Overeem, and that was definitely a big deal. And obviously, Steve and Ted, you brought up Jacare. We definitely love Jacare on Beyond the Cage, and definitely a guy I think is very deserving of the most improved fighter. And even though that fight was in one of the fights was in Strikeforce this year, I mean, he took on a UFC guy in Ed Herman, and I still think that is a very big win, even though Ed Herman's maybe a middle-of-the-road guy. For him to take him on and finish him the way he did is very impressive for Jacare. And I didn't know if anyone else wanted to jump in with any other thoughts before we move on to our next award.
Yeah, does anyone else look at Travis Brown getting trimmer and trimmer and think he's going to try and drop to 205?
That's Yeah.
Yeah, he does seem to have thinned out a bit. I mean, the guy's what, 6'7"?
6'7". Last I saw, he was about 235 now. He used to be 265. He gets trimmer every time I see that guy.
He would be wouldn't he have the blueprint to beat John Jones at 205?
He'd have a blueprint to beat a lot of people at 205 pounds. I mean, his size and height alone would give him a really good advantage. The only thing would obviously be conditioning and if his body can physically handle getting down to 205 pounds, if that's a really smart decision. So, I mean, if Daniel Cormier, who's probably about the same weight, 240, if Cormier feels that he can get down there no problem, Travis Brown probably could, but again, it's if he wants to. I mean, if he gets a shot at heavyweight, gets the title shot, and beats Cain Velasquez, why drop down?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what he's thinking is that he's leaning out and because he wants he wants to increase his cardio because he's going to need it against a guy like Cain Velasquez.
Yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to our next award topic here. Let's go with Female Fighter of the Year. And of course, this is maybe the biggest year ever for women's MMA, 2013, the first year that women have fought inside the octagon. You also kind of had the emergence of Invicta, even though it wasn't the first year of the organization. They had 2 pay-per-views, and they're gaining a lot of steam within the MMA community. And you've also had, maybe on the downside of things, you had Bellator fold their women's division. So you've had a lot of crazy things happen in the world of women's MMA, but a lot of people, I think you can give this, probably every award, I guess you could say you give it to a lot of people, but I think a fighter that has kind of gone under the radar, even though now she is a world champion, but she has kind of quietly gone about her business very well and has gotten quite a few knockout victories as well. But I'm going to go with the first and current Invicta FC Bantamweight champion, Lauren Murphy, as my female fighter of the year. Not only did she capture the Bantamweight championship for Invicta, she went 4-0 this year. She went 4-0 this year, 3-0 inside Invicta. She did have one fight in another organization. And her style, you know, it might not be pretty all the time, but it's very effective, and she gets the job done. So my pick is Lauren Murphy for Female Fighter of the Year.
Boy, oh boy, I don't know who I'm gonna pick for the Female Fighter of the Year. I have 2, and I'll give them both to you. The first one, I can see everybody laughing. I find that amusing. The first one is Tisha Flores. She went 3-0 in Invicta in the calendar year. Everybody that she beat is a seasoned veteran, so I would definitely say that she is one of the top fighters. But to me, the #1 contender for the UFC Bantamweight title is Kat Zingano, and she put a beating on Misha Tate. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Kat because she's the #1 contender, and she's going to get the belt next year. So, Female Fighter of the Year, Kat Zingano.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I wanted to make sure whether you're going with the co-award, but you are, in fact, going with Kat Zingano?
That is correct. No co-awards from the juice.
All right, let's move on to Chuck for Female Fighter.
Jim, you keep going through my picks before I get a chance to do them, and you're doing a great job at it. So I will concede, Lauren Murphy was my pick. And for all the same reasons that you outlined yet again.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
Next category, just let Chuck go first. Just so he can talk.
All right, I'll let Chuck go first. All right, let's move on to Ted Czech, your pick for Female Fighter of the Year.
Yeah, I liked Alexis Davis. She had 3 fights this year. She beat Shayna Baszler by rear naked choke, and then Rosie Sexton and Liz Carmouche both by decision. I mean, really all top names there, you could argue. So yeah, I really like her. You know, as the Female Fighter of the Year. I mean, I don't believe that she is. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I got to brush up on my WMMA, but I don't know that she's a champion anywhere. But she is. She's ranked #3. It says here, pound for pound, and #2 for the bantamweight overall, I guess. But so yeah, I really like Alexis Davis.
All right, let's move on to Steve for your pick, Female Fighter of the Year.
Okay. My pick here is pretty vanilla, especially since she only fought one time this year. But you know, Ronda Rousey is the face of WMMA. She kind of transcends the sport. You know, she's one of the only guaranteed draws in the UFC right now. And you know, basically, she was on every magazine, every talk show. She coached The Ultimate Fighter. She's in movie roles alongside some pretty major stars in Hollywood. And you know, quite honestly, for the overall good of the sport, she's the person of the year. I think in women's MMA, just for the fact that she moved that whole genre from point A to point B so quickly, and she did it almost single-handedly.
And at least to your point, Steve, even like you said, she only fought once. She probably would have fought twice had she not had to do the Ultimate Fighter.
Right.
I mean, I know her fight's coming up, but you know what I mean.
She's going to fight again this year. It's still this year. Next week is still this year, I guess.
Right.
So she'll fight twice.
Let's move on to Doug to finish up Female Fighter of the Year.
I have to agree with Steve. Dana White said we'll never have women in the octagon, and watch Ronda fight, and now they have 2 women's divisions. Now, some of that is due to the other women, obviously, but if it wasn't for Ronda, they wouldn't be in the octagon. So I think she's got to be the Female Fighter of the Year. Now, there are others that are qualified. There are others that are definitely deserving, but I think she's at the top of the list.
All right, does anyone else have any other points or counterpoints here on Female Fighter of the Year?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes or no? We'll start with Chuck. At the beginning of 2013, did you think that women's MMA would be where it's at today?
Quick answer, no. Definitely
Steve?
not.
Steve?
No, did not.
Doug?
No, I'd have to say no.
Chuck? Or Ted?
No.
Jim?
Should I just disagree with everyone and say yes? No. No, definitely no, because you add in Ronda Rousey, like Steve was saying. You add in a second weight class. You add in 2 female coaches on the Ultimate Fighter, female cast members. You add the first ever Invicta all women's pay-per-view. Anyone that said that they saw all that coming for women's MMA is a liar.
Yep.
There's no way you could see that coming.
For me, the proof of that is that every event, I make sure that I watch every woman's fight, because it seems like the percentage is so high of good fights. And the same goes for the most recent Ultimate Fighter. I watched every episode of that because not only did I think the fights were going to be good, but also I knew that the top few fighters, maybe 5-6 fighters on that show, are legitimate fighters already inserted into the top 10 in that division, because the division's so short right now. So for those 2 reasons, that's what proves it to me, is that I can't wait to watch those fights.
All right, and now joining us on the Hangout, as I mentioned, is Ray Flores from ESPN 1000 in Chicago. Of course, he also does some play-by-play and ring announcing for various MMA and boxing organizations. And Ray, welcome to the Google Hangout here, Beyond the Cage End of the Year show.
Uh-oh. I don't think he can hear us.
Well,
I think he can hear us. I'm efforting it on my cell phone.
Hang on, there's like a no microphone logo over his name.
All right, I'll keep texting him. Move on to the next topic.
All right, let's do that then. Looking at the next topic here, let's see. Let's go with Breakthrough Fighter of the Year. Now, some people may be thinking this is similar to Most Improved Fighter, but it's not, because Breakthrough Fighter is a fighter that has kind of been a prospect or has fought for lower-level promotions and maybe now is just starting to catch the attention of everybody with maybe a bigger promotion or with their better performances. So I don't know if I'm the first person to do this, but at least so far, I'm going to give a co-award for Breakout Fighter of the Year. I couldn't decide between these 2 fighters, so I decided to give them co-honors. First, I have Brandon Thatch from the UFC, who went 2-0 in the octagon, both of them being first-round knockouts. This guy has looked awfully impressive. This guy is a huge welterweight, standing at 6'2". He has run through everybody so far in his career, just 1 loss. I believe he's 10-1 or 11-1. He's looked incredible. I think he might be the next big thing in the UFC's welterweight division. And then as my co-part of the award, I gave it to Tisha Torres, who has gone 3-0 in Invicta, coming off a huge victory over Felice Herrig in her last fight. And she's only 4-0 professionally. And her next fight, even though could have been for the strawweight title of Invicta, but of course now with the whole Ultimate Fighter thing. But she got invited on that show, and I believe she's only 22 years old. She's still very young in the sport, and she's already arguably one of the best in her weight class. So I'm going with Tisha Torres as my co-Breakthrough Fighter of the Year with Brandon Thatch. So let's go up first to Doug for your pick for, or co-pick if you got a co-pick for.
We got to go to Chuck. So we got to go to Chuck so he can get some words in.
You don't want to go to Chuck again.
We'll wait on Chuck then. All right, let's go to Doug as I said. Doug, what is your pick?
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Ted Johnson. I mean, I know he was he's been in the UFC, he's been in the WEC, but he's really burst onto the scene, especially this year. Really put himself in play for the title at 145. He's been very effective, and I really think that he's one of the guys who got to watch this coming year.
All right, let's go to Chuck. How about now? Where's your pick, Chuck? For most improved or breakthrough fighter? Sorry.
Well, Jim, I think you were cheating off my homework. My pick is my pick is also Brandon Thatch. Jim, you've been cheating off my homework again. And most recently, his win over Paulo Thiago definitely just vaulted him up, in my opinion. Like you say, kind of went from pretender to contender in a hurry.
Absolutely. And is that Ray joining us? No?
Mr.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yay! There he is. Ray Flores.
What's up, guys? Sorry.
Ray Flores now can hear us from ESPN 1000 in Chicago. We're right in the middle, Ray, of our category for Breakthrough Fighter. If you don't have your pick just yet, we can come back to you. But if you got your pick already, more than welcome to share what your pick for Breakthrough Fighter is.
You know, I do have a Breakthrough Fighter of the Year to join you guys. Technical difficulties here, but Travis Brown still kind of to be determined what's going to happen next week or this week when he takes on a tough and an interesting Josh Barnett, which you guys had the job of interviewing. But I think it's Travis Brown. I mean, he picked up Victor Rousseau over him in the first round and then went ahead and defeated Gonzaga. So I think Travis Brown had himself a bona fide heavyweight contender, and this week, once he defeats Josh Barnett, I think more so he shows that he is going to be a future world champion down the line, assuming and when Cain Velasquez gets.
He cut out at the end.
Well, he definitely made a great point if he did cut out. And let's continue on Breakthrough Fighter of the Year with Dave. What is your pick here?
Jim, you know me and how well I study the pronunciation of all the fighters in the UFC.
Right.
I'm going to put that to the test right here. My pick for Breakthrough Fighter is Habib Nurmagomedov. This young man. Thank you. This young man is 5-0 in the UFC with 2 finishes of those 5 fights, but he is definitely making a name for himself at 155, and I think that he is going to be getting some top 10, top 5 fights in the coming year. So Habib Nurmagomedov is my pick.
All right,
just announced he's going to be fighting Gilbert Melendez.
Yes.
Nice. I didn't know that. Thank you.
Huge test there for him. And let's go to you, Ted. Your pick for Breakthrough Fighter of the Year.
Yeah, I like the pick. I like Habib, but really my guy is notorious Nick Newell. He's the one-armed fighter from the World Series of Fighting. He only had 2 fights this year. But I mean, he gained a lot of notoriety because he is an amputee. But also, this guy is a dangerous and very skilled fighter. And as it turns out, he won both of the fights this year with this guillotine that he has, and really he uses his amputated arm in that guillotine. So his disability has actually become his advantage because of the way that he torques that guillotine. And so he's been in the XFC and now he's in World Series of Fighting. People are starting to clamor for him to be in the UFC. He might have to win a few more fights, but I think kind of like women in the UFC, maybe a few more fights, and Dana White is going to take notice, and maybe this guy will get in the UFC, and so for me, the guy is Nick Newell.
And Ted, you should get if we were given points, you should get a bonus point because you picked the first World Series of Fighting fighter for one of these awards, and maybe the only one.
Maybe I was going to say maybe the only one.
All right, and let's get to Steve here to round out Breakthrough Fighter of the Year.
We're just talking about the women's division, the last category, and this is why I like the women's division right now. My pick for Breakthrough Fighter is Kat Zingano. And in the women's division, you can literally go from obscurity to a UFC main event in one night. And that's really what Kat did pretty much. She had one win with Invicta in 2012, and then she gets signed by the UFC. Her fight with Misha was one of my top 5, let's say, of the year, without giving anything away for later. No spoilers. But she earned a shot at Ronda. She earned a coaching gig on Ultimate Fighter. Of course, we know the bitter end of that story, though, is that she wasn't able to cash in on either one of those. But that didn't negate how far she came in one fight this year, and that's why I'm picking her as a breakthrough fighter ahead of some other ones that I had that I thought were pretty good too. You guys mentioned some, of course, but some of the other ones that I think Kat probably just inched out were like Conor McGregor, Glover Teixeira, even like T.J. Grant, guys like that.
Hey, Jim, before we go on, can I give a plug for Steve?
Sure.
Can you guys see this sweet Topps card that I've got? That's part of Vigilante MMA's t-shirt. Pretty neat, huh? That's VigilanteMMA.com.
What was that again?
It's right up there. See that?
Before we move on to the next category, guys, since Ray you joined us midway here, the 2 topics you missed out on to get your thoughts on those categories, so everyone, you're all caught up to speed here. First, let's start out with most improved fighter. Do you have a pick for most improved fighter, Ray?
Yeah, I would have to say most improved fighter would have to go to Robbie Lawler, and and I know that you mentioned that as well, but Robbie Lawler, what he's been able to do. And I'm a little partial, guys. I'm biased because he's old school MMA. I remember watching him back in, the late 90s and stuff, and that kind of dates us back a little bit. But Robbie Lawler is an old school MMA guy, one of the original gangsters, and to see him now get a title shot and, to see what he's ready to do potentially and, win the UFC welterweight title if he's able to defeat, Carlos Condit, I think would be, or Johnny Hendricks, that'd be tremendous. So, Robbie Lawler gets my pick for, in that aspect. And, I couldn't be happier for Robbie. He's been around for a long time. He's had ups and downs and finally living up to his potential.
And now, Ray, your pick for female fighter of the year.
Female fighter of the year, guys. And I know that I think you guys have, women's most improved fighter of the year, but I would have to go with what I've seen so far. And I kind of lump them into both, actually. And this is Tecia Torres. Tecia Torres, what she's been able to do, really making a name for himself. I mean, a lot of people are already now picking her to win tough in the women's division at 115 once that gets going. So, and what, Dave and I, we both saw her up close and personal at the last Invicta show. My goodness, I mean, for what she was able to do to, Felice Herrig, that's no small task. And she's really coming on. And for, a lot of people to come out and kind of call her out already. And, she's young, she's explosive, she's powerful. Guys, look out for, Tecia Torres in 2014. But to me, she's fighter of the year just based on what she was able to do.
All right, now that we got Ray all caught up here, let's see. Let's get to some of the finish awards. Let's start first with knockout of the year. And you can go, there's two ways you can kind of go about this word. You can kind of go about what was maybe the most spectacular, and then maybe what was the biggest importance of a knockout, and that's kind of the way I'm leading towards in this, is it probably wasn't the most spectacular knockout, but to me, the way he did it and who he beat by knockout is kind of why I'm picking that, and I'm going with Chris Weidman with his knockout victory in the second round over Anderson Silva. I mean, to beat the guy who many thought was unbeatable and to finish him no less is pretty incredible for a guy that has kind of, like Mike Goldberg always says, a meteoric rise. All of a sudden gets a title shot and beats the baddest man on the planet. So my knockout of the year, maybe for more significance, more so than being spectacular, is Chris Weidman over Anderson Silva. Let's get, let's see here. Let's go with Steve from VigilanteMMA.com.
Yeah, it's really hard to argue against Weidman right here, but and I would concede that as well. But I'll try to argue it just for variety, I guess. You mentioned it, Jim, that the knockout of the year should either be a spectacular highlight reel knockout or something very significant. And I think Antonio Silva's knockout over Alistair Overeem was both of those. Not only was it fun to watch and see it happen and see him chop that dude down, but with the backstory leading up to the fight, there was some bad blood, of course. Overeem just comes across as such an arrogant dude that that was a fun fight to watch and a fun ending for Bigfoot. And if this thing was written by the WWE, Bigfoot couldn't have played the babyface role any more perfectly than what he did right there. And well, I was gonna give my runners up, but no need, because you guys are probably gonna jump all over them.
All right, let's go to Ted Czech next here.
Yeah, I definitely love the Bigfoot win over Alistair Overeem. I did pick Weidman over Silva. I mean, as far as just overall significance, that one had it hands down. I mean, this guy did not get rattled by Silva. He didn't. Most of the guys that have fought Silva have defeated themselves before they even stepped in the cage. That didn't happen with Weidman. And then he didn't let Silva's antics get to him once he got inside the cage. Once the fight started, he didn't let any of that bother him. And I mean, and Silva's antics were far more than he had ever done, I think, in any other fight. He seemed to be rattled by Weidman. He seemed to be a bit confounded by what Weidman was doing. And to look at the knockout itself, it was like a little. Weidman flicked out his right hand. It wasn't even a jab. It was like just a flick, which caused Silva to move his head over, and he basically ran right into the left hook. It wasn't even that hard of a punch, but it was right on the money. And that, his eyes were rolling back in his head, and then Weidman just finished him off on the ground. I mean, it was just that to me was it has both significance and a spectacular quality to it. So yeah, definitely knockout of the year.
Let's go with Doug Keast next from MMA Team Genesis.
I don't think anybody can argue the significance of Weidman knocking out Silva. I am partial to any knockout against Overeem. So there were a couple of them. There was Brown and there was Bigfoot Silva. But as far as impact, as far as that amazing knockout, I think when I saw the X-ray of Stephen Struve's jaw, my jaw broke. I'm gonna go with that one. I like Stephen Struve, but when you see that kind of damage delivered to a human jaw from a human fist, that's pretty impressive. I'm gonna go with Mark Hunt knocking out Stephen Struve.
All right, and let's go to Chuck Grace from MMAinsider.net next.
Yeah, I think you can argue significant-wise. Weidman definitely gets the nod for sure. Just to throw the little guys in there, I suppose. Mighty Mouse sure had an impressive knockout against Joseph Benavidez there just last 9 days ago, or however long ago it was. That was a pretty clean knockout. Definitely not expected from Mighty Mouse over Benavidez, that's for sure. Not on the feet, anyways. And then just to give Bama some love, Paul Bailey had a pretty impressive knockout over Da Silva in the main event of Bama 14 on the 14th. It looked like he might have levitated Da Silva a little bit there with that uppercut that he landed against the cage.
So you going like with a co-split there, Mighty Mouse over Benavidez and Paul Daly over Da Silva?
Well, my overall pick is going to be Weidman versus
okay.
Silva. I just figured just so I could talk a little bit without James stealing all my words.
All right, cool. I just wanted to clarify for our listeners out there because you threw out a couple and they're like, "What did Chuck actually pick?" So I wanted to just clarify. But yeah, no, I try not to steal your thunder too much there, Chuck. But I guess great minds think alike. So.
Well, that's what they say, right?
All right, let's move up next to Ray Flores for Knockout of the Year.
Jim, I would have to give it to, obviously, the consensus seems to be, Anderson Silva getting knocked out by Chris Weidman. And, yeah, you can argue with the significance of that. And let us also talk about in the fight that Weidman was getting pounded. He was getting beaten, and he took some abuse in that first round. And for him to come out in the second round and still kind of, remain composed despite the fact that Silva was having his way and then saw the opening and took advantage of it, guys, historical significant-wise, I don't think you can argue with Chris Weidman beating Anderson Silva back in July. But also, and I'm glad you guys are bringing up, last week's card, or a couple weeks ago's card, I would have to give it to, a distant second would be, or not, I mean, I know it's not TKO, but, just in terms of finish-wise, Uriah Faber, what he did to Michael McDonald, I mean, you want to talk about a straight-up beatdown. I mean, my goodness, what Uriah Faber was able to do a couple weeks ago against McDonald certainly has, the bantamweight division on notice. So, I mean, I'd have to give it, though, in terms of knockout-wise, you have to give it to Chris Weidman. It's not going to happen this week, guys. I know we're not previewing this week's card, but, Weidman will always be able to take that, for the rest of his career.
All right, and last but not least, the Juice.
I'm not happy. I'm just going to say that. I had a story all laid out for my pick, and then Doug Keast ruined it. I had the weather report for March 3rd, 2013 of Saitama, Japan. I was going to tell you everything about that night when Mark Hunt knocked out Stefan Struve, but that's my pick.
What was the weather? Was it raining?
I'm gonna be honest, Dave.
No. Google it yourself.
No, I want to know. You did all this research. It's a shame to waste it.
Nope, I already clicked off the page.
All right, before we move on to the next topic, I gotta say, Dave, for people that listen to our show, I think they know that Dave is a huge fan of Chris Weidman, and I don't think he makes that a secret. And so I was really shocked out of anyone on this panel that we got here that you did not pick Chris Weidman over Anderson Silva. I was very surprised.
Jim, do you want me to click on this again? Because I'll tell you if you need to hear it again. Chris Weidman is 10-0. True or false? True. Right?
Well, it's not really true or false. It's a statement. But
okay.
True.
True. Thank you. I like that guy. We should keep him around. He is 10-0, and in those 10 fights has never been in trouble. Never been in serious trouble in any of those fights. And he knocked out Anderson Silva, who didn't care in that fight. It's a big knockout, but I wasn't. When it happened, I was surprised. But the fact that he beat Anderson Silva was not surprising to me. But we're getting way off course. Let's get back to the picks.
All right. I just wanted to clarify because I thought for sure that was going to be your pick, but you surprised us there with picking Mark Hunt over Stefan Struve.
I got to keep the fans on their toes.
Right, absolutely. Let's move on to the other Finish Award category, unless anybody has anything else on Knockout of the Year. No? All right. Next up, Submission of the Year. And this one, I think, man, you could really have a lot of different variations on this one. I think we're gonna have a lot of different answers here, but for my pick, and I think I'm going maybe a little more towards the significant factor, but Anthony Pettis defeating Ben Henderson at UFC 164 with that first round triangle choke. I mean, incredible. First of all, just to finish him in general, I think would have been an accomplishment, let alone doing it inside the first round with a submission. I don't know what it is about Anthony Pettis against Ben Henderson, but Pettis just seems to have his number, and that was an incredible victory. I mean, for him to win the title with that in his hometown, pretty incredible performance. It sucks now that he's hurt, and it's going to be a while till we see him defend that title, but that was pretty incredible, beating a guy the likes of Ben Henderson. Maybe not quite on the same level as Anderson Silva, but definitely was getting towards that category of looking like a pretty unbeatable guy. So my pick is definitely Anthony Pettis over Bendo. And next up, let's go to Ray Flores of ESPN 1000 for your pick on submission of the year.
Jim, I agree with you totally, and being there, Dave and I were both there, but just to be able to see Anthony Pettis' story really come full circle after the ups and downs in his career, after what he's been having to force, having his knee blown out and having the loss to Clay Guida, to be able to go out there and finish Ben Henderson in his hometown in the first round, you couldn't ask for a storybook ending, and there's a lot more chapters to write in the career of Anthony Pettis. And actually, in talking with Duke Rufus a couple months after that, at the Glory event here in Chicago, just to be able to hear what Anthony had to go through and just, his entire story. But, just basing it, X's and O's wise, MMA style wise, Ben Henderson doesn't tap out to anybody. And for Anthony Pettis, he did a cartwheel kick and kind of got caught in the guard. For him to be able to finish Ben Henderson in the first round to win the title in his backyard, guys.
And we lost Ray again.
Did we lose him there?
Beating the Shogun Hua.
There we go.
All right, we got it. We got it in there. All right, let's move on next to Chuck Grace. Did I steal your pick, Chuck?
No, that was definitely in my top 5, though. My pick, I think, is going to be, I'll stick with the Mighty Mouse theme. Mighty Mouse over Moraga, setting the record for the latest stoppage in a UFC fight. That was a pretty impressive sub that he had there. Especially when people are kind of saying, the flyweights aren't really known for finishes, and they're kind of catching a bit of flack now. He's kind of proven otherwise. And an honorable mention I'd give to Thug Rose Namajunas for her flying armbar at Invicta 5. That was quite the sight to behold, that's for sure.
All right, let's move on to Steve.
I picked the Kenny Robertson submission over Brock Jardine. That I don't even know what it's called, some kind of hammy stretch. But here's the deal with this one. That this fight was on Facebook, which means I didn't even watch that thing live. And quite honestly, I probably never would have watched it, except that I heard about this submission, so I wanted to watch it. Go back and check it out. I picked this one because of how unique it was. I can't even touch my toes, and I'm sitting down right now, and I still can't. And this guy was bending his leg all the way. It just looked sick. And so that's my pick. I also like saying Brock Jardine's name just because it sounds like a mishmash of a couple of different dudes. It sounds like it might be like a giant grizzly bear who's missing part of his large intestine that likes to hibernate a little bit too much and too soon.
And has a really weird goatee. All right, let's move on next. Ted Czech's pick for submission of the year.
Yeah, originally I had Pettis over Bendo, and then that was an armbar, right? I thought it was an armbar. Now, Jim, you said triangle, but
well, I mean, he had the triangle switch to the armbar. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, it was both.
I mean, you heard his arm popping.
Yeah, he popped his arm. I think it wound up being an armbar.
But yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I don't mean to split hairs or anything.
No, I got you. I like to be. You were correct.
Split arms. But no, you know what? On second thought, I liked Chael Sonnen over Shogun Rua. You know, I mean, two guys that, I mean, Chael's probably never going to fight for the title again, and Rua, you know, people say, oh well, maybe he's over the hill or whatever. But I just like that. I mean, you know, I had heard that Chael Sonnen was you know, has been training his submission game for quite some time, and so it was great to see him actually show that in the cage. You know, and get a finish that way rather than take another fight to decision like he usually does, like we expect him to do. So it was kind of the unexpected out of Chael Sonnen. So yeah, I like that one. I mean, it's not as though it had a lot of impact like you know, like Pettis over Bendo, but I just like that one.
All right, let's go up next to Dave Sadler.
Well, I had Chael Sonnen over Shogun. I thought it was a very impressive. Of all the people who would have bet on that fight, on the finish of that fight, there's like 3 who would have said submission, Chael Sonnen victory. So, you know, that was their debut main event on Fox Sports 1. The submission was amazing. Well, the submission wasn't technically amazing, but what I thought was awesome was not only does he get the sub of the night, gets his win bonus, then he walks out of the cage and starts doing post-fight right there on Fox Sports 1. The new home for MMA. So I'll give Chael Sonnen the nod.
All right, let's finish up submission of the year with Doug Keast.
When I was going over the submission of the year for MMA Insider.net, I was watching all these submissions that we had you know, nominated, and I watched the Henan Brow over Michael McDonald. And I was really impressed with it. I watched it and I had forgotten how impressive it was. It was a very quick transition from the back to a head-on triangle, and I just watched it and I was just impressed. And it got my vote in, and it's going to get my vote here.
Anyone have any points or counterpoints on submission of the year?
Steve, did you want to say Brock Jardine again?
Brock Jardine. Oh, he just got knocked out. Sorry.
Oh, wait, did Bob Sapp get just knocked out too? All right, let's move on to event of the year, which is the best fight card for 2013. And this one kind of is a weird pick probably from me to start out here, and I don't think too many people are going to pick it or maybe even remember it, but I'm going with UFC Fight Night 32 as my pick for event of the year. If you don't remember Fight Night 32, the main event was Vitor Belfort against Dan Henderson, and looking over the main card, you had 4 finishes on the main card. And then if you look at the undercard, every fight on the undercard was decided by a finish, whether it be knockout or submission. So of the 10 fights on the card, you had 8 finishes, and it was capped off by Dan Henderson getting knocked out for the first time in his career by Vitor Belfort. I had this thing on DVR. It said like 3 hours, but I think I breezed through it in about an hour, even with the 2 decisions. And very few of the fights I've DVR'd have gone that quickly. And not only for the excitement factor, the quickness factor, I thought that was a great and probably the best fight night overall we've had so far since the UFC started doing this back in August. So I'm going to maybe go off the radar a little bit there with Fight Night 32. So let's go up for event of the year with Doug Keast next.
Well, mine is going to be completely unscientific. I was really impressed with UFC 167 because that was the first UFC that I have actually attended in person in Vegas. There were a lot of good events, but that one stood out. I mean, when I'm sitting in the stands and I hear the crowd roar, there's no way to beat that. You just can't do it. Anybody who's listening, if you can go to a fight in Vegas, do it. Maybe once. Go once. Maybe twice. 3 times. They say, 3 times? Okay, 3 times. We'll go at least 3 times.
No, definitely a good pick there, Doug, and not just because you went to it, obviously a little biased, but no, that was definitely a great card. And
yeah, it was a good event. There were a lot of good fights. There was a little bit of controversy with the main event, but every fight was hotly contested. It was a good event.
Let's go up next with Ray Flores and your pick for event of the year.
Well, Jim, I would have to go with UFC 158, and just based on the fact that you went ahead and you had, GSP beating Nick Diaz, and then you had, Johnny Hendricks really take that next step in his career as he defeated, he went ahead and he defeated Carlos Condon, and then you had, Darren Elkins, who got a really big opportunity, defeating Antonio Carvalho. Guys, I just think just based on those 2 fights alone, and then you had Jake Ellenberger, get a big win on that night as well. So I don't know. I would have to say UFC 158 just based on the fact that it set up GSP and Johnny Hendricks. And in terms of the welterweight division, it's so deep. And then you also, like as we mentioned, Ellenberger came back, got a big victory. So I would have to say UFC 158. It doesn't necessarily have the flair and the style that, the other cards that you guys are discussing. I just think in terms of significant-wise, when it comes to setting up Hendricks and GSP for November of this past year, I think that one gets the nod for me.
Dave Sadler, buddy, what's your pick?
Did you guys notice that you could follow me on Twitter at Vigilante Juice? Did you guys see that? No?
No, I can't see it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Dave, I think we all do follow you on Twitter.
That's great. That's good, Ted. I appreciate that.
We're the only ones.
That is also true. Okay. I'm going to do... There's 2 that I have in front of me. One's a pay-per-view, one's a free show. I attended one, I did not attend the other. And I'm going to kind of go off the board, I think, and I'm going to pick UFC on Fox in January of this past year. The main event was Mighty Mouse defeating Dodson, going all 5 rounds. It set up Glover, he beat Rampage, which has propelled Glover to better things. Anthony Pettis beat Cerrone, which got him his lightweight title shot. Ricardo Lamas was victorious, which now that's leading to his title shot. TJ Grant was victorious. And it was just, it wasn't full of real big names, but from that event, they've gone on to bigger and better things.
Let's go with Steve Sadler next for your pick on event of the year.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard for me to separate, the best with my favorite, and this is one of those times. I wouldn't say that this event had the best 10 or 11 or 12 fights top to bottom, but I'm picking UFC on Fuel 8, just based on the two co-headliners. Were 2 of my favorite fights of the whole year. Two of my top 5 fights, and that was Wanderlei Silva, Brian Stan, and then the co-main event, which was Mark Hunt and Stefan Struve, which has been mentioned already. Speaking of that second fight, I found myself screaming at the TV every time Hunt followed Struve down to the ground, and then I found myself yelling at the TV again at Struve every time he tried to trade with Hunt, and that was just kind of the whole those 2 fights carried the whole show. And for me, those are 2 fights that I save on my DVR, and just those 2 alone, help put this fight, put that whole event over for me.
Hey, Steve, when you yell at your TV, does anything actually happen, or?
It affects things, sure.
Hey, real quick, Jim, before you go to the next person, I want to change my vote to back Steve, because as I go and I look, it says here that Mizugaki defeated Brian Caraway, and I'm 100% on board with anything like that.
I'm going to have to check with the judges to see if you can change your pick, because I'm pretty sure that's illegal. Since he does a lot of stuff in ring, he does the announcing. I'm going to go to Ray Flores. You get the final verdict. Can Ray, can Dave change his vote?
Hey, the juice is the man, so he can absolutely change his vote. And anything against Mr. Caraway is definitely, I am all aboard. And not because of my...
Well, Ray gives you the go-ahead, Dave. So if Ray says it, it must be true. So I'll give you the change from UFC on
whatever
Fox
he wants.
6.
He's the man.
Yeah. And change that to UFC on Fuel 8.
Thank you.
We got it. All right, let's go to Ted Czech next for Event of the Year.
Yeah, I liked 166, UFC 166. Just looking at the main card, a lot of big names, not all finishers, but Shane Velasquez beating JDS to regain his title. Then you had Daniel Cormier versus Roy Nelson. That one I was not impressed with. But then, of course, you had that absolute war, and I guess we'll probably get to this one later, but Gilbert Melendez versus Diego Sanchez. Gonzaga gets a knockout over Jordan, and Dodson gets a knockout over Montague. So, yeah, as far as names and as far as excitement, I thought that one took the cake right there.
And also, don't forget, friend of the show, Jessica Evil Eye made her UFC debut and was victorious over former Strikeforce champion Sarah Kaufman. So.
Okay. Forgot about that.
Gotta plug friends of the show. And let's go to Chuck to end out this topic here.
Well, funny enough, I actually, you jumped off the radar, Jim, you said, and apparently right onto my radar. Because I had UFC Fight Night 32, Belfort Henderson, just based on the finish volume alone was an impressive feat. But being that you picked it and stole it away from me, I'm going to change to the next fight night, which was Mark Hunt fighting to a draw with Bigfoot Silva. That was an epic heavyweight battle in the main event for sure. Then you had Mauricio Hua knock James Tahuna clean out cold. Bader put an absolute beating on Roche. Paleli mounted one of my counterpart at the website MMAinsider.net, for those who don't know what it is. Mounted and put an absolute beating on my counterpart Dave's favorite fighter, Pat Barry. Then the Hester Andrews fight was kind of disappointing because Andrews threw his shoulder out and they had to call it early, but it's still a pretty entertaining scrap. And then the Mizugaki fan fight on the undercard was also an entertaining bout to watch.
All right, we got anybody want to change now before we move on to the next one?
Steve, what are your thoughts on UFC Fight Night Brock Jardine?
I think he needs a costume. Brock Jardine needs like a costume with a I don't know, maybe a mask or a cape.
He sounds
like something like kind of like, let's see what I got here. Something kind of like this guy right here.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah.
That is absolutely perfect.
For those of you who don't know who that figure is, it's of Dr. Doom.
Nice.
He's the best villain in comic book history. So,
is Viking still something?
Maybe Keast Jardine could jump up to heavyweight and fight Brock, and then you could have like a Brock Jardine.
That is awesome. I like that.
Is it possible that both those guys could get knocked out in the first round?
Oh, it absolutely is.
It'd be like the Gray Maynard Ray Emerson fight.
Rob Emerson, yeah.
Or Rob Emerson,
yeah.
That's how long ago it was. His name was so insignificant it escaped me. All right, let's move on to, we got our final two topics. And we discussed before we came on this hangout that these were the big two topics of the show, and we were going to save them for the last part of the show. So let's go with let's see. Let's go with Fighter of the Year first. We'll go with the last individual award. And for Fighter of the Year, I think I'll start first with my runner-up, and a guy that I think a lot of people maybe wouldn't pick for Fighter of the Year just because he's been in the spotlight for so many years now, but Uriah Faber would be my runner-up. He has quietly gone 4-0 here in the UFC. He's had some fantastic victories. He's main evented cards, he's co-main evented cards, and he's got himself back into a position for a shot at the bantamweight title. And just for sake of rivalry and rubber match and history and trilogies and all that, I hope Dominic Cruz comes out on top against Hennenbrau just because I really want to see Faber fight Cruz for a third time. I want a definitive finale to their rivalry, and because we kind of got robbed of that after all that 12 weeks of The Ultimate Fighter. That was the big payoff, and we didn't get to see that. So hopefully that comes to fruition. So that's my second place, but I got to go with the guy who graces the background of my Twitter page right now, and that's Vitor Belfort, as he has gone 3-0 in the UFC, all victories by first-round knockouts, all of them spectacular, defeating Michael Bisping, Luke Rockhold, and probably the most impressive, doing what many thought was unthinkable, knocking out Dan Henderson. And I know people may want to bring up TRT and the fact that they were all in Brazil and not in the United States, but at the end of the day, if you're knocking out 3 top 10 competitors in the first round, you're doing something right. And Vitor Belfort has been on another level this year, and hopefully that can continue in 2014 with what looks like a title shot next for him versus the winner of Weidman and Anderson Silva. So let's go up next to Ted Czech for your pick for Fighter of the Year.
Yeah, Jim, I was hoping you'd come to me because I wanted to say that I chose Vitor as well, but with an asterisk. And you talk about if you're Vitor, you got to be doing something right, but maybe the something right is the TRT. It's just something that's been hanging over his head this entire year, or whenever it was that he said, yes, I am on TRT. The question remains, is he going to be able to get a fight in the United States? Dana White has said, the only reason I have him in Brazil is because of Globo, or whatever the huge Brazilian network is. They like to have him in Brazil. But I don't know if I necessarily believe that. I'm a bit skeptical of that. And I want to see Vitor in the United States, or I at least want to see if an athletic commission is going to allow him to fight here in the United States. So yeah, for me, it's Vitor. Those knockouts are absolutely spectacular, but it's with an asterisk because of the TRT, which I'm against. I'm against TRT. I don't think it should be allowed for any fighter. If you need to be on TRT, you shouldn't be in fighting.
Let's move on next to Ray Flores.
Jim, I would have to give my Fighter of the Year to Anthony Pettis. I think what he's been able to do this year, even though he got injured and he wasn't able to fight in December against Josh Thompson, being able to go out there and bully the bully and Donald Cerrone back in January, and then to follow that up with another first-round finish of Ben Henderson in his hometown to win the world title, I think you have to give it to Anthony Pettis, despite the fact that he has 2 wins instead of 3 like Vitor Belfort does. A second, to me, has to be John Jones. Goes out there, finishes Chael Sonnen, looks impressive, and then has the fight of his life against Alexander Gustafsson. And despite that it was a highly disputed split decision, he faced adversity for the first time, and he came out on top, and he got the victory, proving that he is a champion and a worthy champion based on the fact that he knows how to fight with his back against the wall. And that 5th round, I think, will cement the early part of his legacy. So Anthony Pettis first, guys. Johnny Bones Jones second. Also, Jim, you're doing a great job of hosting this thing, my friend. My goodness, great job today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, Ray. I'm trying to do my best here. Let's move on next to, let's see. Should I flip the coin? No. Let's go to Dave Sadler.
Thank you for picking me, Jim. I do appreciate it. And before we move on, I just wanted, did you guys see this shirt that you can order on VigilanteMMA.com on their shop? Did you guys see that? See that? Woo! Looking good. All right.
Is this the Vigilante MMA Hour?
Hey, it could be.
I'm just throwing out new names, that's all.
Hey, Chuck, I could use a hat. Look at this Hayabusa hat. It's all dirty. You want to get an MMA Insider hat, I'm all about wearing it. Just saying. Anyway, what were we talking about? Fighter of the year?
We were looking at your size medium
fighter
shirt.
Wait, what's that again, Steve?
I said we were looking at your size medium shirt.
Hey, he checked if they had a smaller size, but they didn't. All right, yeah, no, Dave, your pick for Fighter of the Year.
Oh, man. Woo! All right, Fighter of the Year. I had 3 listed. I believe... I'm gonna say the one that I really want and not spoil the other 2. I think it's very hard to pick against Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. Might not be the flashiest guy, might not be on pay-per-views, posters, TV shows, all that kind of stuff, but he did defend his title in January, 5-round fight. I thought it was a good fight. He finished Moraga, like Chuck said, the latest submission finish ever in a fight, and then he knocked out a very, very game Joseph Benavidez just a couple weeks ago, and like they kept saying, and like we said in the breakdown, Jim, this guy's the champ, and he's on quite the win streak. He's got 5 wins in a row, and this guy keeps getting better and better as the champion. A lot of times we see these guys getting better as they work their way towards becoming the champion. This guy's the champion and getting better and better and better. So my pick for Fighter of the Year is Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. And if you guys want, I can do the... Doesn't he do this? Isn't that what he does when they announce him in the cage?
Yeah, he does do that. Ridiculous thing.
It's not just brains, guys. It's not just brains on this show.
Oh man! Now for everyone involved, because everyone's been on the show. Now you see what doesn't make the show. Now you always wonder, like, what does Jim cut? Like, it has to be pretty flawless, right? You go, well, now you know. This is behind the scenes of Beyond the Cage here. Let's move on to Chuck.
Yeah, Fighter of the Year. I think it's kind of hard to argue against Vitor. TRT aside, I think Rockhold might have said it best. He said TRT didn't kick me in the head and knock me out, which is a true point. But maybe the TRT, like Ted says, is responsible for just Vitor being able to have that flexibility at this late stage of his career. But I just think the resume of guys that he was knocking out was crazy impressive, and the fashion he was doing it was like spectacular. All 3 of those could be nominated for Knockout of the Year.
All right, let's go up next to Doug Keast, MMA Team Genesis.
I'm probably going to have to go with Uriah Faber. You know, he fought 4 times this year. He's undefeated. 3 stoppages. You know, he's just been really impressive. Everybody else that's been mentioned has been impressive also. I just think, man, he's the champ, and he's constantly right at the door. 4 wins this year, and you know, 3 impressive stoppages. I think that puts him in the Fighter of the Year category right there.
Plus, Doug, we got his autograph and got to meet him when you, Dave, and I were in Columbus. And he was sweet. That was I couldn't believe he was there and signing autographs right there for free like that. I mean, that, for a guy of his stature, just just free autographs. That was pretty sweet.
Well, he could have smiled though.
All right, let's move on to round out the topic with Steve.
Yeah, I had plenty of other candidates here, including a lot of the ones that you guys mentioned, like Belfort and Faber, Chad Mendez. But I went with Demetrius Johnson, just, you know, for the fact 3 straight title defenses, not to mention on how he did it. He beat Dodson, Moraga, Benavidez, and in each of those 3 fights he won. He won a submission of the night, a knockout of the night, and a fight of the night in those 3. And I just think that you know, some divisions they have you know, a certain number of elite championship type fighters. For example, I think heavyweight has 2 basically, Kane and Jr. That's just my opinion. Well, I think flyweight has 3, and Demetrius Johnson beat the other 2 this year. Just for that fact, and like Dave said, he's getting better and better. I really like this guy, and the little guys sometimes don't get as much credit as they should. But I got this guy as Fighter of the Year, and if you want to put an asterisk by this, feel free. If Weidman goes out and knocks out Anderson Silva again, I think that's going to be a hard one to argue against. Right before the buzzer here at the end of the year.
So is winning one of each award, is that known as fighting for the cycle?
Yeah, he fought for the cycle. I think that's right. I think that's exactly right.
Oh, it's an octagon hat trick.
There you go.
Should we give Mighty Mouse a little Stanley Cup?
That might be real size in his hand.
There you go.
Man, Ray Flores is missing out on the video. Too bad. It's all good.
I think Ray can see the video. He just doesn't have video.
Yeah, no, it's that ESPN money, boys. They pay us well, ESPN Chicago.
All right, well, final award. And I guess I think we saved the best for last here, and that is Fight of the Year. And we had a lot of fantastic fights in 2013. And I was kind of torn between a couple different fights, but I don't know if I'm going to be the only one that picks this. I don't think I will. But I'm going to break the streak here. Now, we had Ted break the streak earlier. He picked a World Series of Fighting for one of his awards and picking Nick Newell. Well, I'm going to break the streak here and pick the first Bellator mention on the show. And I'm going to go with Michael Chandler against Eddie Alvarez for the second time at Bellator 106. What was supposed to be their first pay-per-view just turned out to be a normal Bellator fight night on Spike TV. But for Eddie Alvarez to basically be out for a whole year, not knowing whether he was going to fight in Bellator, fight for the UFC, to come out and give that type of performance against the guy and Michael Chandler, who Bellator is very, very lucky to have. They were able to lock him up for another 8 fights, one of the true young guns of the sport at just 25 years old, looking unstoppable, running through guys at their 155 division. To, first of all, live up to the hype of their first fight and then go all 5 rounds and have it come down to a decision, which was very close, but I had it scored for Alvarez's favor, and for Eddie to kind of go through all that and come full circle and once again become the Bellator lightweight champion. I thought that fight was fantastic, and that's my pick for Fight of the Year. And we'll go to Ted Czech next for your pick on Fight of the Year.
Yeah, I had Melendez and Sanchez. Just an absolute war. There's a lot of great candidates out there. Like you said, Jim, Alvarez versus Chandler too. John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson. Hunt versus Bigfoot. Even as far as the women, Jessamine Duke versus Rocky Pennington from The Ultimate Fighter. I like that one too. But for me, head and shoulders above the rest, Gilbert Melendez versus Diego Sanchez.
Let's move on to Doug next for your pick.
I was going to pick the Melendez-Sanchez fight because it was 5 rounds of non-stop action, and I thought that was pretty much a winner. And then Hunt and Bigfoot pulled their and had that brawl down in Australia. The only reason I would I might vote against Hunt Bigfoot is because of the fact that Bigfoot hopped hot after the fight. But that doesn't take away from the fact that that was an absolute war. There was arguably the best fight in the heavyweight division and arguably the best fight in the UFC.
And Doug, real quick, just because we just had him on the show, Josh Barnett, I asked him about the fight, and he said he hadn't seen it, but he obviously had heard about it, and he was kind of like very critical of it, saying it's easy for people to say that was a great fight because it was kind of sloppy and it was a brawl. And I don't know if you heard that when he said that, but did that kind of maybe take you by surprise, or do you think maybe that is maybe something that takes away from the fight at all?
Well, I didn't hear him say that, but I understand what he's saying. It wasn't the most technical fight. You know, lots of big looping punches and heavy shots. But it wasn't the most technical. So, I mean, I can understand where he's coming from.
All right, now, see, I wish I could cut this out. Dave, you're ridiculous. Let's go to you, because obviously you haven't talked for 5 seconds. So,
Go ahead. I'm done. I promise.
Follow him on Twitter at VigilanteJuice. Right? Is that what it is? No.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Let somebody go.
Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, Dave.
All right.
No, seriously, Dave.
Good job, Doug.
You guys just
Doug, the consummate one-upper.
bunch of clowns.
Okay. We're talking about fight of the year, right?
Oh, last time I checked, yes.
Okay. Fight of the year. I'm trying not to look at the screen so I can concentrate. You know, there's lots of good fights that could be on there. The Bigfoot, Hunt, Melendez, Sanchez, all of those are possibilities. But I don't think that there's a fight that has a... I think it's a hard fight to argue. It might not be on anybody's list, but I'm going to go with the main event from 167, and I'm going to pick... not 167, scratch that, 157. Ronda Rousey against Liz Carmouche. That's my pick. And I won't do any more shenanigans, I promise.
No, I gotta mess with you, right? It wouldn't be a hangout if I couldn't mess with you. So, let's move on next to Ray Flores for Fight of the Year.
Fight of the year, guys, has to be, to me, John Jones and Alexander Gustafsson. We really found out what Alexander Gustafsson was made of in that fight. I mean, he really made himself a big-time player in the light heavyweight division. Did so before, but to be able to be the first guy to put John Jones in deep waters says a lot. And then for John Jones, with a Nike contract, with the Gatorade contract, with everything on all the acclaim that he has on his shoulders, to rise above and not fold under the pressure speaks volumes. A distant second to me has to be Johnny Hendricks and George St. Pierre. Again, you had a champion in George St. Pierre who was rattled not once but twice, and yes, people said that, you know, Hendricks won the fight, etc., etc. No matter how you slice it or dice it, George St. Pierre, he gave up the title, but he won that fight on the scorecards, and George St. Pierre did enough and really, you know, dug down deep and to get the victory over Johnny Hendricks. So to me, those are two significant fights. But my fight of the year, John Jones over Alexander Gustafsson. You know, John Jones was rattled not once but on several occasions, guys. And, you know, the thing about Alexander Gustafsson is you can throw a brick at him and he'll still keep coming forward. But John Jones didn't break. He didn't break under that pressure. He came out forward and he utilized his unorthodox striking to, you know, impress the judges and get the victory in that pivotal fifth round. John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson, what a war. It needs to happen again very soon.
Let's go on to Chuck Grace next.
Yeah, I agree with Ray. I think John Jones has found his potential career-long rival in Gustafsson. That was an absolute barn burner. It had pretty much everything you want, minus, you know, some really aggressive, high-level ground game. But yeah, I thought it just showed John Jones that he was able. You can't really attack his heart or his, you know, character inside the cage. He really dug deep in that one and came away pulling out the win. And, you know, a close win, but it was pretty good showing on his part, just for his extreme amount of heart that he showed in that fight.
All right, and to end the last segment with the last pick, we go to Steve Sadler.
Definitely my favorite fight this year was Wanderlei Silva and Brian Stan, UFC on Fuel. The first round was probably the best of the year. I could just watch that thing over and over. And one thing about that fight is that it had two guys that I really like in that fight. And but one thing is that I'm kind of a sucker for nostalgia, and to see Wanderlei slug it out, get a knockout in Japan, jump on the cage, it brings back a lot of memories. And like I said, it was two guys that I like. Stan's is a great fighter and a great person, it seems like. And he almost knocked out Wanderlei twice in the first round. Then Wanderlei comes back, almost knocks out Stan, and then and then he gets the knockout in the second round. What a fun fight that was. That's one that I save on my DVR, and I would show that fight to somebody who came over, and just to show them what great MMA is really like. I just love that fight, and even probably better than some of the other fights that maybe it were technically better. But one footnote here, I just had some of my runner-ups, and Mark Hunt made 2 out of my top 5 fights of the year. So good job to what is he, Australian or New Zealand?
I think, well, he's technically New Zealand, but yeah, he lives in Australia.
Okay.
Same thing with James T. Hanna.
And Brian Ebersol.
He's Samoan?
He is not Samoan.
Oh.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
Being as my business card says I'm the co-host, I want to ask one real quick question, and then everybody can go away.
Oh,
or go to bed, or do whatever they want to do.
All right.
So 2014, there's a lot of stuff in the book, not in the books, but there's a lot of stuff on paper that's coming up. Title fights and whatnot. What's one thing everybody's looking forward to in 2014? I'll give you a couple seconds to think. I'm anxious to see if my pal Brian Ebersol gets another fight. I'm also looking forward to see Kat Zingano get a title shot maybe this year. And, that's what I'm looking forward to in 14. How about you, Ted?
Since we were just talking about Alexander Gustafsson and John Jones, well, if Jones can successfully defend against Glover, and then if Gus wins against Manoa, then hopefully we can see the rematch. But the one thing I'm not looking forward to is this whole digital channel that the UFC has just launched. I don't know. Do you guys know much about this thing? Because I don't know.
Besides
I'm
that
really
crap.
confused because I don't know what's going to be on this channel that I'm not going to be able to see on Fox Sports 1 or Fox Sports 2 or pay-per-view, or I'm just totally confused by the whole thing.
I'll give you an answer,
please
Ted.
set me straight.
You tune into the pay-per-view on Saturday. Apparently, the post-fight show is going to have information. It's like basically when it's going to roll out is after the pay-per-view.
From real quick, Ted, from what I've heard, do you know how WWE has like their own on-demand channel? Kind of.
Okay.
It's going to be like that, but way worse.
Well, I mean, so they're gonna have cards in other countries, right? And they're gonna put them on this video or this on-demand thing. So that means if I don't have that, I can't see a particular card. Like right now, if we get the pay-per-views and if we have Fox Sports 1, we pretty much have everything.
Right.
You won't get to see it live because they're going to start playing the shows at a reasonable time locally. So a fight in Japan, for example, would be, they're not going to do it at 6 o'clock in the morning in Japan anymore, just so we can air it in prime time in the United States. So from what I understand, you would be able to watch it, but not live. And I think it's also a source for if you these Ultimate Fighter. What are they calling these things? The foreign Ultimate Fighters.
Tough Nations.
Tough Nations. I think it opens it up for you to watch that too. And one thing that I saw, probably the one thing that I thought was the best was this huge fight library. So you could go back in UFC, Pride, Strikeforce, WEC history and watch, just hundreds, thousands of old fights.
So, what are you looking forward to?
$10, but
what are you looking forward to in 14, Steve?
In 14, sometimes addition by subtraction, and that's how I'm feeling about the welterweight division right now. I think that without GSP, it opens the door for a lot of good fighters. I mean, the top 10 is stacked. I think that division drifts down even farther than that. Top 15, a lot of cool matchups there, and that's the division I'm really looking at right now. I think despite losing the biggest star in the game, that's the most exciting division for me right now.
All right, Mr. Limousine Riding, Jet Flying, Wheelin' Dealin', Kiss Stealin', Ray Flores. What are you looking forward to in 2014? Oh, man. He didn't hear that? Oh. Brutal.
Maybe he fainted.
Is he there? No. Oh, his microphone's on mute again. All right, let's go to
Keast.
Yeah, let's go to Doug then.
I honestly don't know what I'm hoping to see. Obviously we're going to have more good fights. There's a new women's division. There will be new champions. I guess if we're looking at like Christmas wish, and hope for a new year, I hope that the image of MMA stays positive. I hope that we can get some better judging, more MMA-centric judging as opposed to boxing-centric. And I hope that it continues to grow, especially, we're talking about the UFC, we're talking about World Series of Fighting, we're talking about Bellator, but it needs to grow productively on the lower levels so that the upper levels can grow. The NFL isn't where the NFL is simply because of the NFL. It's because there's a culture that's built starting with Pop Warner through high school, college, and then to the NFL. And if we can't get the amateur ranks, the lower level promotions to prosper, then the UFC is their feeders are going to be weak. So all the normal stuff I want to see grow, but ideally I want to see the lower levels. And of course, I'm biased because that's where my guys are at.
For now. Mr. Flores, are you there?
Yes, I'm still here, Dave. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, yes. Okay, so let's try that again. Mr. Wheelin' Dealin', Limousine Riding, Jet Flying, Kiss Stealin', Ray Flores. What are you looking forward to in 2014?
The check's in the mail, by the way, but I'm looking forward to seeing, Ricardo Lamas, just based on the fact that, being from the Chicagoland area, Ricardo Lamas, Chicago, take on Jose Aldo for the world title, 145. Looking forward to seeing Darren Elkins bounce back to see if he can kind of make a run at the featherweight championship. And as we talked about, guys, I cannot wait to see John Jones and Alexander Gustafsson Part 2. The first one was tremendous. The second one is not going to be Anchorman 2. It's not going to be The Hangover 2, guys. The second one is going to be way better than the first one. And, guys, I can't wait for Jones and Gustafsson number 2. And also I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the women's division, with Ronda Rousey and Kat Zingano, and now the strawweights being infused into the UFC, on top. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what women's MMA has. And also, guys, on a personal note, looking forward to seeing if Holly Holm gets into, the UFC. I did Holly Holm's last fight, and, she looked impressive. She has a huge fan following. She's fighting on Legacy for the world title or for their title. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Holly Holm kind of makes her way into the octagon at some point this year as well.
Sweet. Hey, Chuck. I don't have a sweet entrance like that, but I do know that you built an igloo earlier today. So what are you looking forward to in 2014?
I'm looking to spend some time in my sweet igloo.
Do you need a sweet T-shirt in your igloo?
I probably need a couple of those, yeah.
Okay.
I might be in a small minority here, but I'm really looking forward to Bellator finally getting it together and putting Rampage Keto together.
Yep, that's off the board.
It doesn't get no response, no ridicule.
I just hope Bellator has a better season, matching up fights and making more solid cards than they did this year. It seemed like Season 8 was so well done, and not that Season 9 was horrible, but it just seems like it wasn't up to the level that they had with Season 8. So I'm kind of with you on to a certain extent, Chuck.
No, I was just kidding. I'm looking forward to seeing the new welterweight champion of the UFC be crowned. It should be a good scrap to determine who GSP's next predecessor is, I guess. And also, yeah, Jones Gustafsson too. I hope that fight comes to fruition either through both guys winning their next fights or both guys losing their next fights. Some way, somehow, that rematch has to happen.
And Jim, 2014.
I got a couple of things. I'm hopeful that not just here in Michigan, but maybe hopefully in Ohio, maybe something around if we go to the Arnold again, or if anyone joins us here on the panel going over to Columbus. I'm going to probably go either way, but if we can get an event over here in Michigan and Ohio, that'd be great. I'd love to go see. I got to go to XFC, but if Bellator can come back, if UFC can come back, World Series of Fighting, they want to come over to the Midwest, that'd be great. I'd love to go see another show. I'm hopeful for that in 2014. We talked with Ted, was it 2 weeks ago? I'm really excited about Tough 20 and the strawweights coming to the UFC's female division. I think that's going to be great. It's going to really revitalize what, in my eyes, has been for a very long time a dying product, at least here in the United States, being the Ultimate Fighter. And I don't know if it'll be the last season Ultimate Fighter, but I think it'd be a great way to go out. I think the show has served its purpose, and the Tough Nations thing should be the way that Ultimate Fighter should be moving forward, really expanding abroad and getting to know talent and seeing talent from other places to help grow the global brand for the UFC, and I think that just makes sense from what they're doing. And my joke one, I guess, to kind of play off of Chuck's Tito and Rampage thing, it's half joking, but to see how GSP does up against this guy right here, and Captain America, the Winter Soldier, as he plays Batroc the Leaper to Chris Evans' Steve Rogers. So I'm hoping, I'm going to see the movie regardless whether GSP was in it, but I'm actually really excited because of the fact he's an actual mixed martial artist and he's playing a guy in the comic books who is an actual martial artist. So it should be interesting to see, and I think that's going to be a great movie on top of that. So that's my kind of like joke one there.
And GSP gets to use his French-Canadian accent, too.
Yes, because the character is French in the comic book, so he doesn't even really have to change much. It'd also be interesting to see if he's going to wear the purple and yellow jumpsuit with the goggles that the Batroc the Leaper was wearing throughout the comics. So I don't know if he's going to go like that or kind of go in a completely different direction with it. So
the problem is, if that movie is terrible, we're going to have to hear every critic in the country use GSP's tagline, "I was not impressed with your performance."
I wonder if that's going to make the movie, though. Like, if Captain America does something and, like, he jumps over the shield or something, and he's like, "I'm not impressed by that." I wonder if they're going to say that.
I bet he said something about not.
But here's the thing: even if it's a bad movie, Doug, it's probably still going to have like hundreds of millions of dollars worldwide gross. So.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
as we get out of here, you want to go through the panel? If they have anything coming up on their sites, blogs, whatever, they can give us a little outro. All of them go across the panel.
Yes, and I will also. So let's start first. Ray Flores, you can follow him on Twitter at Ray Flores86. Also, you can hear him on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. And Ray, you lead a very exciting life, as Dave said with your intro, with the jet flying and the kiss stealing, the son of a gun that you are. What do you have coming up that people can watch or listen to?
Well, guys, what I'm doing, updates tomorrow from 2 to 6, Christmas Eve on ESPN 1000, and then during the week. But, I'm actually doing some pro wrestling a little bit, not actually getting in the ring, but managing a group in Joliet, Illinois for Pro Wrestling Blitz, doing a little wrestling, pro heel managing, so looking forward to that, guys. And then looking forward to the UFC coming to town. And what I'm also looking forward to is I'm looking forward to seeing what Beyond the Cage has and what you guys are doing. I think with you and Dave and Steve, what you guys have, this empire that is growing with Vigilante MMA, and listening to your podcast. I'm excited. I'm excited about the entire panel as well. Doug, looking forward to seeing your guys grow and develop more inside the TFC Steel. Looking forward to seeing some pros, grow and develop, and just looking forward to seeing what everything has. And on behalf of myself, happy holidays to all you guys. It's a pleasure to know all you, everybody on the panel, and looking forward to seeing what 2014 has for everyone. I'm sure it's going to be bigger, better, and better than ever. So.
Thank you for the kind words, and I feel bad for whoever's next to follow that up.
All right, let's get Doug Keast. He runs the official MMA Team Genesis, not only Facebook page, but their Twitter at MMA Team Genesis. One of the head coaches over there. So, Doug, anything, you mentioned some of your up-and-coming guys. I'm sure they got some probably fights coming up that people in the Chicago area can see.
Yeah, we currently have 2 fighters that are scheduled to fight in February 7th at the Willowbrook Ballroom for the Total Fight Challenge. One is a title holder. He'll be defending his title, his 205-pound TFC title. We've got another guy who's doing an amateur rules Muay Thai fight, and then potentially another Muay Thai fight also. So we're going to start off the year hopefully on a good foot, and try to carry it through the whole year.
Sweet.
All right, let's go to Ted Czech. You can follow him on Twitter. It's just his name, at Ted Czech. And also, please subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's always posting on there his thoughts on the world of mixed martial arts. And Ted, what do you anything you got especially coming up here soon?
I'm going to try to get to some more events. I haven't been to one in a while. I've been to a few Bellators, but I'd like to get to some more, and whether it be local or bigger. I've actually never been to a UFC, so I'd like to get to one of those. So yeah, just I'd like to cover some more events live. I mean, I do a lot of predictions and fight recaps. And it's one thing to sit in your home and do that kind of stuff, but I really want to get out there a little bit more. But I got this thing called the wife, and this other thing called the kids, and then this third thing called the day job. So it's tough. I'm gonna do as much as I can.
This sounds like Dave Sadler bringing his problems to the show. No.
Hey. Just for the record, my wife can hear me, and I love her. And I'm glad she brought me this Mountain Dew and this shirt and all that stuff.
My wife can't hear me. That's why I call her this thing.
All right.
All right. Yeah, of course. Steve Sadler runs VigilanteMMA.com, the Facebook page, always posting stuff on there, and then at Vigilante MMA on Twitter. Steve for Vigilante.
The usual stuff. We're ramping up for the holidays, so with the spirit of Christmas in mind, we took 5 terrible, it's a matter of opinion, Christmas movies, holiday-themed movies, and we rewrote them with kind of an MMA slant to it, where we inserted one of the some of our favorite UFC fighters, in place of one of the protagonists in the movie. And I think, quite honestly, I think they all got a lot better. So go ahead and check that out and let us know what you think about that.
How many replaced Steven Seagal?
No, was he in a Christmas movie?
I don't know, probably not, but you know what I mean.
Hey, one question for Steve, and then Chuck, you can actually answer it for your site as well. Are you guys doing anything, or do you have anything already posted for end of the year, similar to what we just did here? Do you guys have any of your own end of the year stuff going on?
Not yet.
Okay.
Year's not over, so I wanted to wait.
Cool. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, we rushed ours. We went December to December. We figured we'd go. We actually just posted all of our nominees for our year-end awards today. So that's live now. So head on over to the site, MMAinsider.net, and vote. Also, we just decided just to try to get a little comment chat going on. We're going to give a couple of free T-shirts away to just random comment that we'll pick. So they're not Vigilante MMA T-shirts.
Where do I go? Where do I go to get this T-shirt?
You go to MMAinsider.net.
Cool.
And then you have to click on the year-end voting awards post. So you can find it on there. Make a funny comment and maybe we'll pick yours, Sadler. Or Sadlers.
And Steve, real quick for Vigilante. Over under 5 Bob Sapp articles.
For 14 or 13?
For 14. What's the over-under on hating on Bob Sapp in 2014?
Well, hating on Bob Sapp is unlimited. Number of articles, I would say, boy, the 5 is a good number. Yeah. Well, I could make it happen either way. I could make the over happen.
All right. Well, I'm gonna keep I should open up the notes section of Beyond the Cage on Facebook and start running the counter as soon as it hits 2014.
That'd be good.
We can keep a running tab right next to my excellent selection of picks, as I pick about 70% of the UFC fights, right? So it'll be right next to that glorious pick section there on our Facebook page. So once again, and then Chuck, you kind of answered Dave's question, but anything else? I guess I don't know. You came on the show last week, so you kind of said what you kind of had planned. But has anything changed moving forward for MMAinsider.net?
No, still pretty much all the same stuff. We talked about our end of year awards, so that's obviously live now, like I just said. And yeah, just looking forward to covering this sport of mixed martial arts in 2014 with the whole crew over at MMAinsider.net. And yeah, that's about it.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedules, like Ted was saying, wife, kids, all that stuff, work, day job, to come and chat with Dave and myself for this huge jam-packed show of Beyond the Cage as we're wrapping up 2013 here, and we thought what better way to have all our friends here on the chat to come on and I know we're not getting paid for this, but the Google Plus Hangout definitely is pretty awesome how we can have all of you on here and video and all that stuff. And we use Skype a lot, I think, as people know, but the video chat in terms of group is a little lacking. So we go to Google Plus for that. And everyone, obviously subscribe to our channel, Beyond the Cage podcast on YouTube. Like us on Facebook, Beyond the Cage, and of course follow me on Twitter at Jim Gramm and follow Dave at Vigilante Juice. And for all our results, just in case you were wondering, I'm sure you can check VigilanteMMA.com, MMAinsider.net, MMAfreak.com, all our great friends and partners and affiliates. I'll have a great Excel spreadsheet that I'm going to send all of them, and they can repost the information how they want and change it and twist it, comment it, edit it, have people talk about it. So that way there will be a written representation of what went down here, just in case people want the Cliff Notes version. So once again, thanks everybody for coming on, and once again for Dave Sadler, Chuck Grace, Doug Keast, Ray Flores, Steve Sadler, Ted Czech, I am Jim Gramm, and thanks for listening to Beyond the Cage presented by Intimidation Clothing.